Hi, my name is Coral Lewis, and the topic I've chosen is domestic violence. When we hear about domestic violence, nobody really wants to talk about it. It kind of makes everyone in the room feel uncomfortable. But for Zora Hertzon, in the film and in the book, Their Eyes Are Watching God, she does an amazing depiction of this through the protagonist, Janie, and she shows the different stages and forms of domestic violence and even the long-term effects that she's left with afterwards. The visual I chose is the cycle of violence. It shows you the different phases and how they kind of repeat each other after a while. The first phase is the honeymoon phase, and that's where in a healthy relationship you actually get to know your partner. But for Janie and Joe, they didn't really know each other. Everything was kind of rushed. She didn't want to be in a loveless marriage anymore, and he had promised her the world, to see the world. And the second stage is the build-up phase, the increase in tension, and that's where you kind of realize that your partner isn't what you thought they were going to be. And the stage after that is the standover phase, complete control and fear. And that's when your partner actually starts demanding things from you. And if you don't do what is asked, you could actually be in danger. The stage after that is explosion. And that's when the big form of domestic violence happens. And we see that throughout the film. The stage after that is the remorse phase. And that's the justification of everything. And for Joe, he doesn't really show any remorse to Janie. He doesn't really apologize for anything, and she's kind of left there thinking that everything is her fault, that she deserves this. And the stage after that is pursuit phase, pursuit and promises, and Joe doesn't really promise her anything, and I think that's because he feels like everything is as good as they're gonna get. He's the mayor and she's the mayor's wife, and what could be better than that? The first time we see domestic violence is at 31 minutes and 50 seconds. It's kind of minor. It's during the lighting ceremony, and all the townspeople are together, and one of them asks Janie to speak, but before she can, Joe comes up and says, "Miss Mayor Starks don't know nothing about speech making. I didn't marry her for nothing like that." And she's completely embarrassed in front of all the townspeople, and you can kind of see in her eyes that she's really upset, but she continues to smile anyways. She's let down at that point. She doesn't understand why he would say something like that in front of everyone. The second and that's kind of like the build-up phase of everything. And the second time we see domestic violence is at 34 minutes and 5 seconds, and Janie's outside hanging out and having fun with the neighbors playing checkers. And Joe sees that and makes her come inside and tells her that she shouldn't be communicating with the townspeople, that she's the mayor's wife and there's a lot of work to be done. And he actually demands that she puts her hair up. Janie gets upset and goes to pack her things to leave, and before she can, Joe stops her and says, "You had nothing before I met you, and you'll have nothing after, and no one would want to marry you." And in that moment, Janie actually starts believing what Joe is saying. And in a peer-reviewed article, Intimate Partner Violence and Psych Wellbeing, Examining the Economic Abuse of Women's Quality of Life, it goes into detail about what economic abuse is, and that is when your partner threatens you financially. And we see that through Joe, because he kind of tells her, like, everything you have is what I've given to you, so without me you don't really have anything. And I think that's one of the reasons why Janie stayed for so long. And at 41 minutes and 20 seconds, that's the big domestic violence scene. It starts off as a minor conversation, turns into an argument, and it progresses pretty quickly. Janie goes to leave, and Joe grabs her, swings her around, and smacks her in front of all of the town's people. And as Janie's pulling herself off the floor, I think she realizes that she's all alone, that all hope has been lost. And I think that's when the depression actually starts for Janie because of the domestic violence. And it just makes you wonder, she stayed for 20 years. Why on earth would someone want to stay for 20 years? What makes you want to stay in that type of environment? My best friend was in something similar to this. No one knew that she was being abused till after the relationship. It was so bad that she ended up being hospitalized, and she suffered from a concussion and hearing loss. And it was probably one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my life, coming from my best friend. And that was one of the questions I asked, is why would you stay in that type of, why? What made you do that? And she told me that she felt like she was nothing without them. That he had told her that she was nothing and she was worthless and no one would want to be with her. And that's exactly what Joe had told Janie through the film, which amazed me when I watched it. even after Joe died, the domestic violence kind of stuck with Janie. Even when she met Tea Cake, she kept referring to herself as a bag of bones or as an old lady, just as Joe did. In a peer-reviewed article, The Impact of Post-Traumatic Symptoms on Women's Commitment to Hypothetical Violent Relationships, A Path of Post-Traumatic Stress, Depression, and Shame, it actually tells you that your mind literally beats itself up, that you make yourself feel like things aren't going to get better, that you're worthless, that you're everything that your partner said, and it's literally ingrained in your mind. And we see that with Janie, because she's referring to herself as a bag of bones, just as Joe did. And with that, you also build a barrier around yourself, that you feel like everyone is out to get you, that no one is trustworthy. And we see that with Janie, because she is reluctant to let Tea Cake in, and I feel like that's because she doesn't want to get herself hurt again, that she doesn't want to go through that pain again, and she doesn't think that she can trust him. So throughout the whole entire film, we see a brutally honest depiction of domestic violence. We see the truth, the ugly truth that nobody really wants to see. And it's amazing that Zora Hertzon does that, because she shows the impact that it has on someone's life and how it progressively gets worse over time and how it can stick with you for a very long time. And I feel like that's why domestic violence is one of the main points in the movie. A lot of it is surrounded by the domestic violence, and that's why Janie's life was the way it was, is because of the domestic violence. That's why I think it's just so important that Zora Hertzon emphasized on it and showed the ugly, brutally honest truth. Thank you.